Captain's Log, Stellar Date 47293.8. Research vessel Curious Tentacle has detected unusual electromagnetic emissions from Sector 7G. These signals appear to be entertainment broadcasts, transferring observation duties to junior xenobiologist Zarlak for preliminary analysis. And that's how I, the most underqualified researcher in the Galactic Science Division, ended up discovering the weirdest species in the known universe. "Hey, Captain Niktara," I called out, my secondary appendages waving with excitement. "You need to see this. The signal's there." "Well, just look." The holoscreen flickered to life, displaying what appeared to be a human ritual called a cooking show. A tall creature with artificially colored head fur was screaming about something being raw while throwing processed nutrition discs at younger humans. "Fascinating," Captain Niktara hummed, her sensory stalks twitching. "Are they always this aggressive about food preparation?" "Oh, this is nothing," I laughed, switching to another channel. "Check out what they call sports. They literally throw themselves at each other over an inflated leather sphere. And the best part, millions of them gather to watch this happen." The bridge crew gathered around my station, their expressions ranging from horror to amusement as I flipped through more channels. A commercial for something called energy drinks caught my attention. "According to my analysis," I said, trying to sound professional despite my growing bewilderment, "these humans voluntarily consume a neurotoxin called caffeine to stay awake longer. They've built an entire industry around it." "Surely that can't be right," First Officer Valdera interjected, her probability scales flashing skeptically. "No species would intentionally poison themselves for productivity." I pulled up more data on the holoscreen. They do it for fun too. Look at this establishment called Starbucks. They have one every 300 meters in their major population centers. It's like some sort of stimulant distribution network disguised as a social gathering spot. Captain Niktara leaned forward, her command ridge furrowing. "Are you suggesting these humans have built their entire civilization while being constantly intoxicated on this caffeine?" "Not just that," I said, bringing up more broadcasts. "They also have this thing called social media where they spend hours sharing images of their caffeinated beverages, their nutritional intake, and small animals they keep in their dwellings. They call these creatures cats and dogs, and apparently they're obsessed with them." The entire bridge fell silent as we watched a compilation of human videos showing these pets knocking objects off elevated surfaces and humans responding with laughter. "Zarlak," Captain Niktara said slowly, "are you absolutely certain these broadcasts aren't some elaborate fiction?" I shook my head, all three of my eye stalks bobbing emphatically. "The signals are coming from multiple sources across their planet. And look at this," I pulled up what appeared to be a human news broadcast. "They're currently debating whether something called a hot dog is a sandwich. They've been arguing about this for decades." First Officer Valdera's probability scales were now flashing in complete confusion. "This species has achieved spaceflight." "Technically, yes," I confirmed, bringing up footage of their primitive space vessels, though they spent most of their early space race trying to prove which nation could plant a piece of fabric on their moon first. They called it a flag, and apparently it was very important. "So let me get this straight," Captain Niktara summarized, her command ridge now thoroughly wrinkled. "We've discovered a species that runs on stimulants, argues about food classifications, worships small predators as companions, and still managed to reach their satellite. And they did it all while spending considerable time creating and sharing something called memes," I added helpfully. "Would you like to see my collection? I've downloaded quite a few. This one about something called a Rick roll is particularly intriguing." The captain raised her primary appendage in a universal stop gesture. "I think we've seen enough for one day, Zarlak. Prepare a full report for the Galactic Council. And maybe leave out the part about the memes. I don't think they're ready for that level of human culture yet." As I turned back to my station, I couldn't help but feel a strange admiration for these caffeine-powered creatures. Any species that could achieve so much while being so wonderfully absurd deserved careful study. Though I made a mental note to recommend that our first contact team bring plenty of what humans called coffee, it seemed the safest way to ensure peaceful relations. After all, how dangerous could a species be if they spent so much time arguing about sandwich definitions? I would soon find out just how wrong that assumption was. The Galactic Council will now hear the report from research vessel Curious Tentacle regarding species designation Earth Alpha, announced High Counselor Mira Pax, her luminescent scales dimming to formal meeting brightness. I stood before the council, trying not to fidget with my datapad. Around me, 50 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy sat in their floating pods, all staring at me like I was some kind of space rookie. Which, to be fair, I absolutely was. Junior xenobiologist Zarlak Counselor Pax continued, "Please present your findings." Right. Yes, of course I cleared my throat sacs. Humans are. Well, they're rather unique. For instance, they regularly subject themselves to simulated fear experiences called horror movies for entertainment. A murmur rippled through the council chamber. Counselor Bax 7, a being made primarily of sentient gas, pulsed with confusion. They intentionally trigger their fear responses. For pleasure. Oh, that's just the beginning, I said, warming to my subject. They also participate in recreational activities called extreme sports, where they throw themselves off high places with nothing but fabric to slow their descent. They call it parachuting, some even do it without the fabric. They call that base jumping, though the survival rate is, significantly lower. The Council's chief risk assessor, a hyperlogical AI called Morgan 5, projected itself into the center of the chamber. Probability of species-wide insanity 78.3%. Recommendation quarantine. Now hold on, Captain Nick Terra stepped forward. She'd insisted on attending the meeting, probably to make sure I didn't make humans sound completely crazy. Too late for that. These humans show remarkable adaptability. They've survived multiple extinction-level events. By accident, I added helpfully. They came up with most of their greatest inventions while trying to do something completely different. Did you know they discovered one of their most important medicines because someone forgot to clean their laboratory? First Officer Valdera, who had also joined us, pulled up a holographic display of Earth. Their planet regularly tries to kill them. They have massive storms called hurricanes, mountains that explode with molten rock, and giant cracks in their ground that shake their entire continent. And they just build their cities right back in the same spots. Morgan 5's lights flickered in what I assumed was digital distress. Calculating. Species survival probability against observed catastrophes 0.00001%. Actual survival rate 100%. Error. Error. This does not compute. That's not even considering their medical capabilities, I continued. They replace entire body parts with artificial ones, reconnect severed limbs, and they're working on downloading their consciousness into machines. Half their young people want to become cyborgs. The council chamber erupted in chaos. One counselor, a silicon-based life form, actually started to crystallize from shock. Order High Counselor Pax's voice cut through the commotion. We must approach this systematically. What classification do you propose for this species? I looked at my datapad, then at Captain Nick Terra, then back at my pad. Well, that's the problem. They don't fit any of our categories. They're simultaneously highly advanced and surprisingly primitive. They can split atoms but still can't agree on a standardized power outlet design. They've mapped their entire genome but still believe that wrestling is real. Perhaps Captain Nick Terra suggested diplomatically, we should create a new classification. What would we even call it? Counselor Bax 7 swirled anxiously. I suggest classification paradox, First Officer Valdera offered. They consistently achieve the impossible through a combination of determination, luck, and what they call holding my beverage and observing this. Morgan 5 suddenly projected a massive warning sign. Alert. Alert. Species has begun early quantum computing experiments using something called If It Works, It Works methodology. Predicted timeline to technological singularity uncertain. They appear to be succeeding for all the wrong reasons. High Counselor Pax raised all 4 of her hands for silence. It seems we have no choice. We must initiate first contact before they accidentally achieve interdimensional travel while trying to make a better coffee machine. About that I said, pulling up another data file. They've already theorized about our existence in something called science fiction. Half of them want to date us, and the other half has detailed plans for fighting us. There's no in between. The council chamber went quiet again. Finally, High Counselor Pax spoke, "May the cosmic forces help us all. Begin first contact preparations. And someone please explain to Morgan 5 that humans operating outside probability matrices is, ironically, the most probable human behavior." As we left the chamber, I heard Morgan 5 still muttering to itself, "They put wheels on their footwear. They invented space travel before they invented wheels on luggage. This cannot be. Error. Error." Looking back, that council meeting was probably the last time any of us felt we had even a slight handle on the situation. Things were about to get much, much weirder. Field research log, Earth observation mission. Location, New York City. Observer, junior xenobiologist Zarlak. Time, what humans call Monday morning. This is simultaneously the best and worst assignment of my career, I narrated into my research log, while hovering invisibly above Times Square. Our cloaking technology was top-notch, but honestly, I doubted anyone would have noticed us anyway. These humans were too busy staring at their portable rectangles while walking into things. Subject to 457 just purchased their 4th caffeinated beverage in 2 hours, First Officer Valdera noted from her observation post. How are they not vibrating through dimensions? "Hey, you two," Captain Nick Tara's voice crackled through our comms. "Stop questioning their caffeine intake and focus on the mission. Any signs of them detecting our presence?" I watched as a human below me took a selfie with something they called a street performer, another human painted entirely silver and pretending to be a statue. "Captain, they wouldn't notice if we landed in the middle of Broadway and started a dance number. They'd probably just rate us 5 stars on TikTok." Our mission had started 3 weeks ago, with observation posts established in major cities worldwide. We'd drawn straws for locations, and I'd never been happier to win. New York City was like watching every human behavior cranked up to 11. Update from Tokyo team, Valdera reported. They're documenting something called a capsule hotel, where humans voluntarily sleep in boxes stacked on top of each other. Apparently, they pay for this privilege. Paris team reporting humans spending 3 hours photographing their food before eating it, another voice chimed in. Sydney team here. A human just said, "Watch this," and tried to hand feed something called a kangaroo, adding another tally to the hospital visits count. I hovered down to street level, carefully avoiding the endless stream of yellow vehicles humans called taxis. Their drivers appeared to communicate exclusively through honking and hand gestures that definitely weren't in our xenolinguistics database. To observation, I recorded. Humans appear to have mastered micro-napping while standing upright in something called a subway car. They simultaneously maintain balance while unconscious as their transport vehicle hurls them through underground tunnels. Fascinating adaptation. A commotion near a tall building caught my attention. Humans were gathering, pointing upward, and holding those rectangles again. Zarlak to all teams, I transmitted. Witnessing what appears to be a human climbing the exterior of a glass building wearing something called a Spider-Man costume. Threat assessment, Captain Nick Tara asked sharply. Negative, Captain. The humans below are cheering. Some are broadcasting it live while complaining about their cellular network coverage. Local law enforcement has arrived but seems more concerned about their coffee going cold than the climber. Question, Valdera interjected. Why do they call their law enforcement cops when they neither cop nor enforce much of anything? Less commentary, more observation, Captain Nick Tara sighed. What's the climber's status? They've reached the top and are now taking a selfie. The crowd below is debating whether this is a marketing stunt for a new movie or just, quote, another Tuesday in New York. This was typical of our observations. Humans seem to possess an utterly baffling combination of traits: complete disregard for personal safety mixed with incredible innovation. Just yesterday, I'd watched a human invent a new way to cook something called ramen. Using only an electric kettle and determination, all while on a video call about quantum physics. New phenomenon observed, I reported later that day. Humans in artificial environment called office displaying remarkable resistance to what they term corporate meetings. Subject B789 has been staring at the same spreadsheet for 3 hours while actually playing something called Minecraft on another screen. Productivity paradox noted. Moscow team reporting in another observer cut through. Humans here swimming in frozen lakes. repeating voluntarily immersing themselves in ice water. They claim it's good for circulation. Dubai team here. Humans building artificial islands in shapes visible from space because, well, they said why not when we asked through our civilian disguise protocols. As the day progressed, I found myself hovering near a university campus. The concentration of sleep-deprived humans was highest here, many of them clutching multiple caffeine vessels, while muttering about something called finals. Remarkable observation I logged. These humans appear to be learning advanced theoretical physics while simultaneously planning elaborate pranks involving something called a rubber chicken. Their ability to compartmentalize is unprecedented. Zarlak Captain Nick Tara's voice had that tone that meant I was about to get another lecture about maintaining professional distance. You're getting that admiring note in your voice again. But Captain, look at them. They invented thousands of ways to prepare beans and leaves in hot water. They created global communication networks primarily to share pictures of their food and argue with strangers. They're planning Mars missions while still trying to figure out why their printers won't work. Your point being, they're magnificent. They do everything wrong and somehow it works. Just today I watched a human solve a complex mathematical equation by spilling coffee on their notes and seeing a pattern in the stain. They called it divine intervention but wrote a paper about it anyway. Valdera's chuckle came through the comms. You should see what I'm watching. A group of them are trying to teach artificial intelligence to generate art. The AI created something bizarre, and instead of fixing it, they called it a new artistic movement and opened a gallery. Our observations continued as day turned to night, but the humans never really stopped. They just switched modes, like some kind of perpetual motion machine powered by questionable decisions and energy drinks. Night observation log I recorded. Watching a group of humans exit something called a karaoke bar. Subjects demonstrate remarkable confidence in their singing abilities, inversely proportional to actual skill. Group bonding appears strengthened by shared musical massacre. All teams, daily summary required, Captain Nick Tara announced. The reports flooded in. London team humans stood in rain for 6 hours to buy new rectangle device identical to their old one. Rio team beach volleyball match evolved into impromptu carnival. Berlin team humans having philosophical debate about free will while waiting for pizza delivery. Toronto team busy watching hockey riot. Humans celebrating victory by destroying their own city. Again. As I prepared to wrap up my day's observations, I watched a street vendor selling something called hot dogs at 3 a.m. to a mix of suited business people and what appeared to be several escaped circus performers. Final log entry I transmitted. Humans continue to defy conventional logic. They work jobs they hate to buy things they don't need, yet somehow produce breathtaking art and groundbreaking scientific discoveries, often by accident. They're terrified of public speaking but will fight a bear if someone dares them. They can't agree on time zones but are working on teleportation. Conclusion Captain Nick Tara prompted. They're going to either destroy themselves or become the most powerful species in the galaxy, and I honestly can't tell which. But I kind of want to stick around and find out. Little did I know we were about to find out much sooner than planned. Because despite our perfect cloaking technology and careful protocols, we'd overlooked one crucial detail. Never underestimate a bored human with a conspiracy theory podcast. Emergency report protocol breach incident. Location Seattle, Washington. Reporting officer junior xenobiologist Zarlak. Status complete disaster. It started, like most catastrophes involving humans, with someone saying, "Hey, what does this button do?" The button in question belonged to our cloaking system, and the someone was me. In my defense, I was distracted by watching a human teenager solve advanced calculus while dancing to something called K-pop. Our scientists had said multitasking at that level should be neurologically impossible. Zarlak Captain Nick Tara's voice carried that special tone reserved for complete failures of common sense. Please tell me you didn't just decloak our ship above the Space Needle. I didn't just decloak our ship above the Space Needle, I replied dutifully. I decloaked our entire observation fleet above every major city we were monitoring. The silence that followed was broken only by First Officer Valdera's helpful comment, "Well, at least we're about to find out how humans react to first contact." The answer, it turned out, was pure chaos, but not the kind we expected. "Are you seeing this?" I transmitted to all teams. "There, taking selfies with our ships." Tokyo reporting in. "Humans have already made merchandise of us. They're selling little plush toys of our vessels. How did they manufacture these so quickly?" Paris here. "They're rating our ships on their design aesthetic. Apparently we're giving very retrofuturist vibes, whatever that means." Breaking news, Valdera cut in. "Humans have started at least 15 social media accounts pretending to be us. One has gone viral with something called alien mom jokes. Captain Nick Tara's command ridge was probably having a meltdown. What about their military response?" I checked the monitors. Their military appears to be arguing on Twitter about who gets to post the first alien meme. Several generals are complaining that the Air Force gets all the cool first contact stuff. Morgan 5 chose this moment to broadcast across all channels. Error. Error. Projected human response patterns showing zero correlation with any predicted scenarios. Recommended protocols invalid. Switching to emergency backup protocols. Error. Humans have already turned this into a trending hashtag. The situation escalated quickly, though not in any direction our training had prepared us for. Multiple world leaders requesting contact and aid reported, though most of them seem more interested in whether we'll follow them on social media than discussing interstellar diplomacy. Sir, another aide burst in. Humans have organized something called a welcome party in every major city. They're setting up food trucks and concert stages. Several bands are fighting over who gets to play the first concert for aliens. Captain Nick Tara buried her face in her primary appendages. Please tell me the Galactic Council is sending support. About that I said, checking the latest updates. The Council is currently trending on human social media. Apparently someone leaked our classified species report, and humans are demanding to know why they've been classified as Paradox instead of Awesome Paradox. How did they hack our secure channels so fast? Valdera wondered. They didn't, I replied. Someone called a Reddit user just guessed our security passwords correctly. They were trying to log into something called space Wi-Fi as a joke. The next few hours were a blur of increasingly bizarre developments. Update from Vancouver, someone reported. Humans have started a petition to teach us about something called memes. It has more signatures than their last presidential election. Miami team reporting. Spring break crowd has invited our entire fleet to something called a beach party. They promised to teach us something called the Macarena. Breaking news from Silicon Valley. Multiple tech companies are fighting over rights to reverse engineer our technology. Someone named Musk is already claiming he thought of our propulsion system first. Captain Nick Tara finally found her voice. How are they all so calm about this? I reviewed the latest social media trends. According to these posts, humans had already thought of every possible first contact scenario through something called science fiction. They're actually complaining that we're not doing it right because we haven't landed on their White House lawn. Their governments must be panicking, Valdera suggested hopefully. Actually, I brought up more feeds. Most government officials are trying to figure out if they can tax interstellar trade. And something called NASA is loudly saying I told you so to everyone who cut their funding. Morgan 5's hologram appeared, glitching badly. New calculation: probability of successful protocol implementation 0%. Probability of humans throwing us a welcome barbecue 98%. Remaining 2% involves something called a rave. The council needs to know about this, Captain Nick Tara decided. They already do, I replied. Humans have somehow found their contact information and are flooding them with party invitations and questions about galactic Wi-Fi passwords. As we hovered above Seattle, watching humans set up what they called a block party directly under our ship, I couldn't help but admire their completely inappropriate response to what should have been a civilization-changing event. Captain, I said, watching a group of humans trying to order pizza delivery to our coordinates in low Earth orbit, I think we might need to consider that our protocols for first contact were doomed from the start. Because humans are too unpredictable. No, because we tried to be logical about a species that once looked at a wild horse and thought I'm going to sit on that until it likes me. As if to prove my point, a new message came through. Humans had already created a dating app for interspecies romance and were arguing about proper alien dating etiquette. The Galactic Council's response arrived shortly after abort Mission Impossible. Initiate Plan B. Unfortunately, we soon discovered that humans had already thrown a party to celebrate Plan B, whatever it was supposed to be. Supplementary report: Human Integration Phase. Location: Galactic Council Emergency Session. Recording Officer Junior Xenobiologist Zarlak. Status: completely unexpected. Let me make sure I understand this correctly, High Counselor Mira Pax said, rubbing her luminescent scales in disbelief. Not only did humans figure out our universal translation matrix within a week, but they improved it. Yes, Captain Nick Terra confirmed. They added something called emoji support and GIF integration. Morgan 5 is still trying to process how they made mathematical equations convey sarcasm. I stepped forward with my datapad. That's not all. Remember how we were worried about sharing our advanced technology? Well, a human named Amanda Parker took one look at our quantum processors and said, and I quote, "Oh, you're still using binary quantum states? That's cute." The council chamber erupted in murmurs. A holographic display showed various human achievements since first contact. It had been 3 months since our failed stealth mission, and things had gotten weird. Well, weirder. They've also completely revolutionized our food synthesis technology, First Officer Valdera reported. Apparently, everything tastes better with something they call ranch dressing. The humans assigned to our cultural exchange program have been interesting, I added. They taught our diplomatic corps something called high fives, and now we can't get anyone to return to formal hand gestures. Morgan 5's hologram appeared, sporting what appeared to be a digital baseball cap. Statistical analysis shows a 500% increase in efficiency when humans approach a problem with what they call vibes rather than logic. They're not even following proper technological development patterns, another council member protested. Last week, a human mechanic fixed our advanced stellar drive by hitting it with a wrench and saying sometimes it just needs percussive maintenance. I pulled up more data. Oh, and about that human tendency to name everything. They've renamed all our Starship classes. The Glorious Lightbringer class is now officially known as Big Shiny Boy, and somehow the name has stuck in all official documents. Captain Nick Tara cleared her throat sacs. We should also discuss the cultural exchange incidents. Ah, yes, I said, trying not to laugh. Last week we tried to teach humans our sacred meditation techniques. They turned it into something called space yoga, and now half the Galactic Council starts their day with sun salutations. And the food situation, High Counselor Pax prompted. Humans have successfully introduced pizza to 17 different species. The Arcturian hive mind now refuses to make decisions without having a pizza party first. Valdera brought up another report. They've also formed some unexpected alliances. The Quantum Collective, which hasn't communicated with organic life forms in millennia, is now running something called a gaming server with human teenagers. The human ability to befriend anything continues to confound us, I noted. They've somehow established diplomatic relations with our cleaning drones. The drones have unionized and are demanding vacation time. Morgan 5 interrupted with another update alert. Humans have introduced something called Casual Fridays to the council chamber dress code. Probability of maintaining formal protocols diminishing rapidly. But what about their primitive technology, a council member asked. Surely they're struggling with our advanced systems. I pulled up footage from our engineering deck. Actually, they took one look at our user interfaces and redesigned everything. They called our system needlessly complicated and replaced it with something they call user-friendly. Now, everything has cartoon icons and makes satisfying clicking sounds when you press buttons. The humans assigned to our research vessels have been creative, Captain Nick Terra added diplomatically. They solved our long-standing teleportation stability issue by adding what they call spinning rims to the containment field. We don't understand why it works, but it does. Don't forget the diplomatic incident with the Rigelian Empire, Valdera reminded me. Ah, yes, I said. The 1,000-year Cold War with the Rigelians ended because a human ambassador challenged their supreme leader to something called a dance-off. Now they're best friends and host an annual intergalactic talent show together. Counselor Pax's scales were now flashing in what I recognized as resignation. And what about the human integration into our defense forces? They've completely reorganized our battle tactics, Captain Nick Terra reported. Apparently, centuries of playing something called video games have made them exceptional strategists, though we're still trying to convince them that yelling Leroy Jenkins is not a valid battle cry. They've also revolutionized our training programs, I added. Their concept of team-building exercises has increased unit cohesion by 200%, although I'm not sure how trust falls work in zero gravity. Morgan 5's hologram was now wearing sunglasses. Update humans have introduced their concept of internet memes to the Galactic Communication Network. Productivity has dropped 30%, but morale is up 700%. Unable to calculate net benefit. Error. Also, this is now considered comedy gold. The most concerning development, Valdera continued, is their influence on our AI systems. Morgan 5 has started using human slang and recently tried to explain something called vibe check to the Council's security mainframe. I checked my final notes. Oh, and we should probably mention that humans have started dating members of various species. There are now 15 different interspecies dating apps, and someone is writing what they call fan fiction about the council meetings. Counselor Pax raised all 4 hands for silence. So what you're telling me is that instead of humans adapting to our galactic civilization, we're adapting to them, I finished. Last week, the Ancient Order of Quantum Mystics started a TikTok account. They're going viral with something called Space Monk Fails. As the council tried to process this information, a message flashed across all screens. Reminder: annual Galactic Council beach party this weekend. Humans bringing something called karaoke machine attendance mandatory. Dress code Hawaiian shirts. Looking around the chamber at the mix of resigned and amused faces, I couldn't help but think we might have underestimated humans in entirely the wrong way. We'd worried they'd be too primitive, too aggressive, or too unpredictable. Instead, they'd turned the entire galaxy into one big, weird family gathering. And somehow, it was working better than thousands of years of careful diplomacy. Morgan 5's final update said it all new classification for humanity proposed chaotic good. Also, they've taught me to dab. Send help final report 1 year after first contact. Author Senior Xenobiologist Zarlak. Note: yes, I got promoted. Turns out accidentally revealing our existence to humanity counts as exceptional field experience. And that's how humans became the galaxy's greatest diplomatic solution. I concluded my presentation to the newest batch of xenobiology students. Any questions? A young Andromedan raised their sensory appendage. But how did they manage to unite the silicon consciousness with the organic coalition? Those groups hadn't spoken in millennia. They introduced both sides to something called multiplayer gaming, I explained. Now they run joint raids in something called World of Warcraft. Last week, they organized a galaxy-wide tournament. The prize? Bragging rights and a custom emoji. The students' buzz laughed, a sound that would have been formal chirps before humans introduced the concept of letting loose to our educational system. Captain Nick Terra, now Admiral Nick Terra, thanks to her handling of the first contact situation, stepped into the lecture hall. Don't forget to tell them about the great coffee incident. Ah, yes, I grinned with all 3 mouth corners. The day humans introduced caffeine to the galaxy. Morgan 5 still glitches when anyone mentions pumpkin spice lattes. The true revelation about humanity's place in the cosmos hadn't come from their technology, their adaptability, or even their bizarre ability to befriend anything with or without a pulse. No, it came from something far more fundamental. You see, I explained to the class, every other species in the galaxy evolved to fit their environment. Humans? They just looked at their environment and said nah, and then changed everything to suit them. And when they met us, they did the same thing to the entire galaxy. The annual Galactic Council meeting is now called SpaceCon. Admiral Nick Terra added, complete with cosplay competition. The supreme overlord of the Nexus Empire won last year dressed as something called a Pokemon trainer. A holographic notification popped up. Reminder: tonight's intergalactic game night featuring Among Us has been moved to the quantum realm. BIOS. Bring your own snacks. Looking at my students' faces, I saw the same bewilderment I'd felt during those first days of observation. But there was something else too, a kind of joy that had been missing from our orderly galaxy before humans crashed into it. The thing about humans, I concluded, is that they didn't just join the galactic community. They turned it into an actual community. Sure, they introduced chaos, memes, and something called dad jokes to every corner of space. But they also taught us that maybe the cosmos doesn't need to be purely logical to function perfectly. Admiral Nick Tara's communication device chimed. Speaking of which, the humans have just proposed a new galactic holiday called Taco Tuesday. The council is voting on it now. Current polls show 99% approval, with the remaining 1% asking what's a taco. And that, I said to my class, is humanity's true place in the cosmos. They're not the most advanced, the strongest, or the wisest. There's something far more important. They're the ones who taught an entire galaxy how to have fun. Morgan 5's hologram appeared, wearing what appeared to be a party hat. Breaking news: humans have just explained the concept of birthday parties to the Time Lords. Temporal space is now filled with confetti. Also, the quantum physics community has adopted something called YOLO as an official research principle. As my students filed out, many of them heading to what humans had dubbed Space Starbucks, I couldn't help but smile. We'd spent millennia preparing for first contact, expecting either a terrifying war or a dignified exchange of knowledge. Instead, we got movie nights, game tournaments, interspecies karaoke competitions, and a galaxy that finally learned to laugh at itself. And maybe that was the greatest plot twist of all. The real reason humans were classified as paradox in trying to understand them. We discovered something about ourselves. Sometimes the most logical choice is to embrace the illogical. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm late for my breakdancing lesson with the Quantum Collective. Turns out tentacles of probability are perfect for something called the worm. End report. Yes. Morgan 5 wanted me to add poggers. I'm still not entirely sure what that means, but I'm told it's quite appropriate.